The dust cloud rose behind her wagon like a funeral shroud, and Evelyn Hartford knew she was in serious trouble when she heard the sickening crack of splintering wood beneath her. It was October 1878, and the Arizona Territory sun beat down mercilessly on the empty stretch of desert road between Prescott and her family's ranch. Evelyn pulled hard on the reins, bringing her 2 horses to a halt as the wagon lurched violently to one side. She climbed down carefully, her boots sinking into the red dirt, and circled around to inspect the damage. The rear wheel had split clean through 3 of its spokes. The wood dried and weakened from the relentless sun. Her heart sank as she realized she was at least 10 miles from home, with nothing but scrub brush and distant mountains for company. She was 22 years old, capable and strong from years of ranch work, but even she could not repair a broken wheel alone in the middle of nowhere. Her father had warned her about making the supply run by herself, but she had insisted. Their ranch hand had taken ill, and someone needed to fetch the medicine and provisions from town. Now she stood in the blazing afternoon heat, shielding her eyes as she scanned the horizon for any sign of help. The sound of hoofbeats made her spin around, her hand instinctively moving to the rifle propped against the wagon seat. A lone rider approached from the south, his silhouette wavering in the heat, shimmer rising from the ground. Evelyn held her breath, knowing that help could just as easily turn into danger out here in the wild emptiness of the territory. As the rider drew closer, she could make out more details. He sat tall in the saddle, a dark hat pulled low against the sun, and he rode with the easy confidence of someone who had spent his entire life on horseback. The cowboy slowed his horse to a walk as he approached, raising one hand in a peaceful gesture. "Looks like you've got some trouble there, miss," he called out, his voice carrying clearly across the quiet desert air. Evelyn kept her hand near the rifle but tried to appear calm. "Wheel broke," she said simply, watching him carefully as he dismounted. He was young, probably not much older than she was, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of the summer sky back in Missouri where she had been born. Dark hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck beneath his hat, and when he smiled there was something genuine and warm in his expression that made her relax just slightly. "Name is Hartford-Brennan," he said, removing his hat respectfully as he approached. "I work at the Double R Ranch about 15 miles east of here. Mind if I take a look?" She nodded, stepping back to give him space. "Evelyn Hartford. My family's ranch is about 10 miles north." Cole crouched beside the broken wheel, running his hands over the damaged spokes with the practiced touch of someone who understood such things. He let out a low whistle. "This wood is bone dry. Surprised it did not give out sooner." He looked up at her, squinting against the sun. "You are lucky it happened here on flat ground, and not on one of those mountain passes." "Lucky," Evelyn repeated with a dry laugh. "That is not quite the word I would use." Cole stood, dusting off his hands on his worn denim pants. "I have got some tools in my saddlebag, been doing repair work around the ranch for years. If you have got a spare spoke or some strong wood in that wagon, I might be able to patch it up enough to get you home." Evelyn felt a wave of relief wash over her. "I have got some planks my father ordered from the lumber yard. They are for the new barn, but I'm sure he would rather sacrifice one than have me stranded out here until dark." They worked together in the fading afternoon light, and Evelyn found herself stealing glances at this unexpected savior. Cole moved with quiet efficiency, measuring and cutting the wood with a small saw, his hands strong and sure. He spoke little as he worked, but when he did, his words were thoughtful and kind. He asked about her ranch, about her family, and listened with genuine interest as she told him about her father's dream of building the finest cattle operation in the territory. "My mother died 3 years ago," Evelyn found herself saying, surprised at her own openness with this stranger. "It has been just me and my father since then. We have got 2 ranch hands, but one is sick right now, which is why I made this run alone." Cole looked up from his work, his expression sympathetic. "That is hard, losing your mother. My own passed when I was just a boy. Fever took her one winter. My father raised me and my two brothers on his own until he died 5 years back. That is when I started drifting, working different ranches, trying to find where I belonged. There was something in his voice, a loneliness that echoed her own, and Evelyn felt an unexpected connection forming. She handed him tools as he requested them, their fingers brushing occasionally, and each touch seemed to carry a small spark of electricity that had nothing to do with the dry desert air. As the sun began its descent toward the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Cole finally stood back and examined his work. It is not pretty, but it should hold long enough to get you home. You will want to have a proper wheel-right look at it soon, though. This is just a temporary fix. Evelyn walked around the wagon, inspecting the repaired wheel with admiration. He had reinforced it with metal brackets from his own supplies and bound everything together with rawhide strips that he swore would hold better than rope. "This is incredible," she said softly. "I cannot thank you enough. How much do I owe you?" Cole shook his head, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "No charge, miss. Just doing what any decent person would do. But I will tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to follow you home. Make sure that wheel holds and that you get there safe. These roads are not safe for a woman traveling alone, especially as it gets dark." Evelyn wanted to protest, to insist she could manage on her own, but the truth was she felt relieved at the prospect of his company. "I would appreciate that," she admitted, "though it is out of your way." "I have got nowhere particular to be," Cole said, swinging back up onto his horse with fluid grace. "The double R can spare me for an evening." They set off together, Evelyn driving the wagon carefully while Cole rode alongside on his buckskin gelding. The pace was slow, both to protect the damaged wheel and to navigate the deepening shadows that stretched across the road. As they traveled, they talked more freely, the conversation flowing as naturally as water down a stream bed. Cole told her about his years drifting from ranch to ranch, never quite finding a place that felt like home. He described the different territories he had seen, from the green valleys of California to the brutal winters of Montana. His words painted pictures in her mind, and she found herself hanging on every story. In turn, Evelyn shared her own dreams and frustrations. "My father thinks I should be thinking about marriage, settling down with some nice rancher's son from town, but I love the ranch. I love the work, the animals, the land. I do not want to give that up to become some man's wife and spend my days cooking and cleaning while he makes all the decisions." Cole was quiet for a moment, and she worried she had been too forward, too honest. But when he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "Seems to me a smart man would want a partner who knew the land and the work. My mother, in the years I remember her, she worked the ranch right alongside my father. He valued her opinion on everything from which pasture to use to when to take the cattle to market. That is what a real partnership looks like." Evelyn felt her heart skip a beat at his words. She had never heard a man speak that way before, with such respect for a woman's capabilities. Most of the men she knew in Prescott either wanted a decoration to show off or a servant to tend their homes. The idea that someone might actually value her skills and knowledge was intoxicating. The moon had risen full and bright by the time they reached the boundary of the Hartford ranch, marked by a wooden fence that Cole helped her open. The main house sat on a small rise, lamplight glowing warmly in the windows. As they approached, a tall man emerged from the house, rifle in hand, his face creased with worry. "Evelyn," her father called out, hurrying down the porch steps. "I was about to ride out looking for you. What happened?" Evelyn climbed down from the wagon, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. "Wheel broke about 10 miles south. This is Cole-Brennan. He fixed it and insisted on seeing me home safely." James Hartford was a weathered man in his early 50s, with steel-gray hair and the deeply tanned skin of someone who had spent decades working under the sun. He looked Cole up and down with the assessing gaze of a man who had learned to judge character quickly in this harsh land. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him because his stern expression softened. "Then I owe you a debt of gratitude, young man. Come inside, both of you. You must be hungry, and it is too late for you to ride back tonight. We have got a spare room in the bunkhouse." Cole started to protest, but James held up a hand. "I insist. Any man who helps my daughter deserves a hot meal and a bed for the night. Besides, I want to hear how you managed to repair that wheel well enough to get her home." Over dinner prepared by Maria, the wife of their ill ranch hand, the three of them sat around the scarred wooden table in the ranch house kitchen. The meal was simple but hearty: beef stew, fresh bread, and strong coffee. Cole described the repair work in detail, and James listened with the intensity of someone who understood exactly how difficult the task had been. Evelyn watched her father's face, seeing approval growing there, and felt a strange flutter in her chest. "You have got real skill," James said finally, pushing back his empty bowl. "Where did you learn to work like that?" Cole shrugged modestly. "My father was a blacksmith before he turned to ranching. He taught me metalwork, woodwork, all of it. Said a man who could fix things would never go hungry in this world." "He was right about that," James agreed. He was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider something. "The double R, that is Tom Richardson's spread, is it not?" "Yes, sir. I have been working there about 6 months now." James nodded slowly. "Tom is a good man, but I happen to know he is overstaffed right now. Took on too many hands before the summer drive. How would you feel about working here instead? I could use someone with your skills, especially with Miguel laid up with pneumonia. The pay is fair and the work is steady." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She had not expected this, but as soon as her father said the words, she realized how much she wanted Cole to say yes. It was crazy. She barely knew this man, but something about him felt right in a way she could not quite explain. Cole looked surprised, his blue eyes moving from James to Evelyn and back again. "That is a generous offer, sir. Can I think on it? I would need to give Tom proper notice. Would not feel right just leaving him in the lurch." "Of course," James said, standing and extending his hand. "You think it over tonight. Give me your answer in the morning." Evelyn showed Cole to the bunkhouse, a sturdy building that housed 2 small rooms for ranch hands. The moonlight cast everything in silver and shadow as they walked across the yard, and she was acutely aware of his presence beside her. At the door, she turned to face him, suddenly shy. "Thank you again," she said softly, "for everything. You saved me today, truly." Cole looked down at her, and in the moonlight his expression was gentle. "I'm glad I came along when I did. And Evelyn, I want you to know, if I take your father's offer, it is not just about the job. I would be lying if I said meeting you today did not affect me. You are different from anyone I have ever met." Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "You are different too," she whispered. "I have never talked to anyone the way I talked to you today." For a moment they stood there in the moonlight, the air between them charged with possibility. Then Cole reached out and gently touched her hand, just the briefest contact, but it sent warmth flooding through her entire body. "Get some rest," he said. "We will talk more tomorrow." Evelyn lay awake long into the night, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. One broken wagon wheel had changed everything, had brought this stranger into her life and made her feel things she had never felt before. She had always thought love, if it came at all, would be a slow, gradual thing. But this feeling that had taken root in her chest today was anything but slow. It was fierce and immediate and terrifying in its intensity. The next morning dawned clear and cool, the way October mornings often did in Arizona before the heat of the day set in. Evelyn was up before sunrise, helping Maria prepare breakfast and trying not to watch the bunkhouse door too obviously. When Cole finally emerged, his hair damp from washing at the pump, she felt that same flutter in her chest. Over breakfast, Cole announced his decision. "If the offer still stands, Mr. Hartford, I would be honored to work at your ranch. I will ride to the Double R today, give Tom my notice, and collect my things. I can start here tomorrow if that suits you." James grinned, clearly pleased. "That suits me just fine, and call me James. We are not formal here." The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Cole proved to be everything James had hoped for and more. He could fix anything that broke, from harnesses to hinges, and he worked harder than any hand they had ever employed. Miguel recovered from his pneumonia and returned to work, surprised but pleased to find a new companion in the bunkhouse. The two men became fast friends, Miguel teaching Cole Spanish, while Cole helped him with the heavier work until he was fully back to strength. But it was the time Evelyn spent with Cole that made her heart sing. He treated her as an equal in every way, asking her opinion on ranch matters and listening carefully to her answers. When they rode out together to check on the cattle in the far pastures, he never once suggested she should stay home where it was safe. Instead, he seemed to delight in her competence, praising her horsemanship and her knowledge of the land. One afternoon in November, they were riding back from the northern boundary when Cole suddenly pulled his horse to a stop. "Hold up," he said, his voice tense. Evelyn reined in beside him, following his gaze. In the distance, she could see a small group of riders approaching fast. Her hand moved instinctively to her rifle, but Cole shook his head. "Wait, let us see what they want first." As the riders drew closer, Evelyn recognized the lead man and relaxed slightly. It was Sheriff Bill Dawson from Prescott, along with two deputies. They were chasing someone, she realized, following tracks that led across Hartford land. The sheriff pulled up short when he saw them. "Afternoon, Miss Hartford, Cole. You two seen anyone pass through here in the last hour? We are tracking a horse thief. Mexican fellow stole 3 horses from the Miller Ranch last night." Cole's expression darkened. "We have not seen anyone, Sheriff. But I will tell you straight, you better be damn sure you have got the right man before you go stringing anyone up. I have seen too many innocent men blamed just because of where they came from." The sheriff's face reddened. "Now, Cole, nobody said anything about stringing anyone up. We are bringing him in for trial, proper-like." "See that you do," Cole said flatly, "because if I hear otherwise, you will answer to me." After the sheriff and his men rode on, Evelyn looked at Cole with new respect. That was brave, speaking to him like that. Not many men would risk the sheriff's anger to defend someone they do not even know. Cole's jaw was tight. "I have seen what happens when people decide a man is guilty before they hear his side. My father was nearly lynched once by a mob who swore he had stolen cattle. Turned out the cattle had just broken through a fence and wandered onto our land. But they were ready to hang him first and ask questions later." He looked at her, his eyes intense. "That is not justice, Evelyn. That is just hate looking for an excuse." She reached over and touched his arm, feeling the tension there. "You are a good man, Cole Brennan, the kind of man this territory needs more of." He covered her hand with his own, and they sat there for a moment on their horses, hands joined, looking at each other in the golden afternoon light. "I am falling in love with you," Cole said suddenly, the words tumbling out as if he could not hold them back any longer. "I know it has only been a few weeks, and maybe it is too soon to say such things, but I cannot help it. You are everything I have ever wanted and did not know I was looking for." Evelyn felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were happy tears. "I am falling in love with you too," she whispered. "I think I started falling the moment you smiled at me beside that broken wagon wheel." Cole dismounted in one smooth motion and came to her side, reaching up to help her down. When her feet touched the ground, she was in his arms, and then they were kissing, soft and sweet at first, then deeper with all the passion that had been building between them. His lips were warm and gentle, and she felt safe and cherished in a way she had never experienced before. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right," he said. "I want to court you properly with your father's permission. And then, when the time is right, I want to marry you, if you will have me." "Yes," Evelyn breathed. "Yes to all of it." That evening, Cole asked James for permission to court his daughter officially. They sat in James's study, a small room lined with books and ledgers, and Cole spoke honestly about his intentions and his feelings. James listened quietly, his weathered face thoughtful. "I will not lie to you, son," James said finally. "When I hired you, part of me hoped something like this might happen. Evelyn is special, and she needs a man who sees that, who will not try to change her or limit her. You see her for who she is, and that is rare. He stood and extended his hand. You have my blessing, Cole. Treat her well, or you will answer to me. Cole shook his hand firmly. I will spend every day of my life making her happy, sir. You have my word on that. The courtship that followed was one of the happiest periods of Evelyn's life. Despite the hard work of running the ranch, she and Cole found time to be together every day. They would ride out to check fence lines and end up sitting by a creek, talking for hours about everything and nothing. He brought her wildflowers he found on the range, and she taught him to dance one evening in the barn, laughing as they stumbled through the steps to music only they could hear. Christmas came, and with it a rare snowfall that blanketed the desert in white. Cole surprised her with a hand-carved music box he had spent weeks making in secret, working by lamplight in the bunkhouse after everyone else was asleep. When she opened it, a delicate melody filled the air, and inside she found a note that read simply, "For Evelyn, who brought music back into my life." She cried when she read it, and Cole pulled her close, holding her while snow fell softly outside the window. "I love you," he murmured against her hair, "more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." "I love you too," she said, looking up at him. "So much it scares me sometimes." He smiled and kissed her softly. "Do not be scared. I am not going anywhere. You are stuck with me now." As winter turned to spring, Cole began building something in secret behind the barn. Evelyn was curious, but he refused to tell her what it was, insisting it was a surprise. Miguel and James were clearly in on it, both of them disappearing for hours at a time to help with the mysterious project. Finally, on a warm April evening in 1879, Cole took her by the hand and led her behind the barn. There, gleaming in the golden light of sunset, stood a beautiful little house. It was small but perfectly formed, with a wide front porch and windows that would let in the morning sun. Inside, she could see furniture that Cole had built himself. A bed, a table, chairs, everything they would need. "I know I should probably wait longer, do this more traditionally," Cole said, his voice nervous in a way she had never heard before. "But Evelyn, I cannot imagine spending another day without knowing you will be my wife. Will you marry me? Will you share this house with me and build a life together?" She did not need to think about it. "Yes," she said, throwing her arms around his neck. "Yes, absolutely yes." They were married in May, in a small ceremony at the ranch with just family and close friends in attendance. Evelyn wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved in a trunk, and Cole wore a new suit that made his blue eyes shine even brighter. Sheriff Dawson performed the ceremony, having been ordained as a minister years before, and his voice was solemn as he pronounced them husband and wife. "You may kiss your bride," Dawson said with a smile, and Cole did, sweetly and thoroughly, while everyone cheered. The celebration lasted long into the night, with music and dancing and more food than seemed possible, but eventually Cole swept Evelyn up in his arms and carried her across the yard to their new home, their friends calling out congratulations and good-natured jokes behind them. Inside, with the door closed and the lamp burning low, they came together as husband and wife. Cole was gentle and patient, making sure her first time was filled with love and pleasure rather than pain. They moved together slowly, learning each other's bodies, whispering words of love in the darkness. When it was over, Evelyn lay in her husband's arms, feeling more complete than she had ever felt in her life. "I never thought I could be this happy," she murmured against his chest. "Sometimes I'm afraid I will wake up and find this was all a dream." Cole tightened his arms around her. "It is real, sweetheart. As real as anything I've ever known. And it is just the beginning. We have our whole lives ahead of us." The first year of their marriage was filled with hard work and deep joy. They worked the ranch together, true partners in every sense of the word. Cole's improvements to the property increased the productivity significantly, and James began talking about expanding their operation. Evelyn loved waking up every morning in Cole's arms, loved the life they were building together. When she discovered she was pregnant that winter, She was both thrilled and terrified. Cole was overjoyed, immediately becoming protective and hovering over her constantly until she had to gently remind him that she was pregnant, not broken. James was going to be a grandfather, and his happiness was a beautiful thing to see. He had worried that he would never see his daughter settled and happy, and now he would have grandchildren to spoil. The pregnancy was not easy. Evelyn suffered from morning sickness that lasted most of the day, and the summer heat made everything worse. But Cole never left her side when she needed him, holding her hair back when she was sick, bringing her cool water and damp cloths when she was too hot, reading to her in the evenings when she was too tired to do anything but rest. Their son was born in September of 1880, arriving during a violent thunderstorm that seemed to mirror the intensity of Evelyn's labor. For hours she struggled while Maria and the doctor from town worked to help her. Cole paced outside the bedroom, going slowly mad with worry as he listened to her cries. When the baby finally came, the doctor emerged with a tired smile. "You have a healthy son," he announced, "and your wife is fine. She is strong, that one." Cole rushed into the room, his heart pounding. Evelyn lay pale and exhausted against the pillows, but she was smiling, and in her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. Cole approached slowly, almost afraid to breathe, and looked down at his son for the first time. The baby had a shock of dark hair and his mother's delicate features. As Cole watched, tiny eyes opened, revealing a deep blue that might darken or might stay the same. The baby made a small sound, and Cole felt something shift fundamentally in his chest. This was his son, his child, a piece of him and Evelyn combined into something entirely new and miraculous. "He is perfect," Cole whispered, reaching out to touch one tiny hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around his thumb, and Cole felt tears streaming down his face. "Evelyn, he is absolutely perfect." "Do you want to hold him?" Evelyn asked softly. Cole nodded, and she carefully placed the baby in his arms. He had never held anything so precious in his life, and he stood there, rocking gently, completely in love with this tiny human who depended on them for everything. They named him James Henry Brennan after both grandfathers, and he became the center of their world. Cole proved to be a devoted father, getting up in the night to walk with the baby when he cried, changing diapers without complaint, and spending hours just watching his son sleep. Evelyn marveled at this man she had married, grateful every day for the broken wagon wheel that had brought him into her life. James Hartford, now Grandpa James to the baby, was equally besotted. He would sit for hours with little Jamie in his arms, telling him stories about the ranch and about his grandmother who had died before he was born. Watching her father with her son, Evelyn felt a sense of peace and rightness that she had not known she was missing. The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. The ranch prospered under the combined efforts of James, Cole, and Evelyn. They added more cattle, improved the breeding stock, and became known throughout the territory as one of the most successful operations around. Cole's reputation as someone who could fix anything spread, and he was often called to neighboring ranches to help with particularly difficult problems. He always took these jobs, and the extra income helped them save for the future. When Jamie was 3 years old, Evelyn became pregnant again. This time she knew what to expect, and while the pregnancy was still uncomfortable, she handled it with more confidence. Their daughter, Sarah Grace, was born in the spring of 1884, arriving easily and quickly, as if she was in a hurry to join the family. She had Cole's blue eyes and Evelyn's auburn hair, and she was a happy, easy baby who seemed content to observe the world around her with calm curiosity. Jamie adored his little sister from the moment he met her, insisting on helping with everything from bath time to feeding. Cole would sit with both children in the evenings, reading to them or telling them stories, and Evelyn would watch from the doorway, her heart full to bursting with love for her little family. But life was not without its challenges. In the summer of 1885, a drought hit the territory hard. Water became scarce, and many ranchers lost significant portions of their herds. The Hartford Ranch was better prepared than most thanks to Cole's foresight in building better water storage systems and identifying previously unknown springs on their property. But it was still a difficult time, with everyone working long hours to keep the animals alive. During this period, tensions in the territory ran high. Ranchers fought over water rights, and there were several violent confrontations that left men dead. The sheriff was overwhelmed trying to keep the peace in a region where desperation made people dangerous. Cole worked tirelessly not just to protect their own ranch, but to mediate disputes between neighbors, using his natural diplomacy and fairness to help people find solutions that did not involve bloodshed. One particularly tense evening, a group of ranchers from the south showed up at the Hartford Ranch, angry and armed. Their water source had dried up completely, and they were convinced that the Hartfords were somehow stealing their water underground. Cole met them at the property line, unarmed but unafraid. "Gentlemen," he said calmly, "I understand you are worried about your herds. We all are, but coming here with guns is not going to solve anything. Let us talk about this like reasonable men." The leader of the group, a hot-headed young rancher named Davis, was not appeased. "Talk? While our cattle die of thirst? You have got water, Hartford's got water, and we have got nothing. That is not right." "You are correct, it is not right," Cole agreed. "And I'm not going to stand here and tell you everything is fair, because it is not. But what I will tell you is that we are not your enemies. We are all in this together. Now I have been mapping the water sources on our land, and I think I know where there might be another spring on the border between our properties. If I am right, that water belongs as much to you as it does to us. Let me show you." Over the next several hours, Cole led the group of skeptical ranchers across the land, pointing out signs that Evelyn would never have noticed. Certain plants that grew only near water, the way the ground dipped in subtle ways, old animal trails that suggested a watering place. Finally, as the sun was setting, they found it. A small spring bubbling up from between rocks, hidden by heavy brush. "This is on the boundary line," Cole said. "Which means it is shared water. You have as much right to it as we do. If we work together, we can build a tank here that everyone can use." Davis stared at the spring, then at Cole, his expression softening. "You really mean that? You would share this water?" "We are neighbors," Cole said simply. "We look out for each other or we all fail. That is how it should be." The ranchers left peacefully, and true to his word, Cole organized a group effort to build a proper watering tank at the spring. Men from 5 different ranches worked together, sharing resources and labor, and the resulting tank was large enough to serve them all. The incident became legendary in the area, a story about how cooperation and decency could win out over conflict even in the hardest times. When Evelyn heard about what Cole had done, she was proud but not surprised. This was the man she knew, the one who always looked for the best solution for everyone rather than just himself. That night, after the children were asleep, she held him close and told him how much she loved him, how grateful she was that fate had put that broken wagon wheel in her path. "I am the lucky one," Cole murmured, kissing her softly. "Every day with you and the children is a gift I never thought I would have. I was drifting before I met you, Evelyn. You gave me a home, a purpose, a family. You gave me everything." In 1887, when Jamie was 7 and Sarah was 3, tragedy struck. James Hartford suffered a heart attack while out checking the far pastures. By the time they found him and got him back to the house, it was clear there was nothing the doctor could do. He died that evening, surrounded by his family, his last words a whispered thank you to Cole for taking such good care of his daughter and grandchildren. The loss hit Evelyn hard. Her father had been her rock, her guide, her best friend for so many years. Cole held her through the long nights when she could not sleep, listening as she shared memories and cried for the man who had raised her. He took on the extra work of running the ranch without complaint, making sure everything continued smoothly even as his wife grieved. Jamie, young as he was, understood that Grandpa James was gone. He asked questions about death and heaven that broke Evelyn's heart, but Cole answered them with patience and honesty, helping his son understand and process his grief. Sarah was too young to fully comprehend what had happened, but she seemed to sense the sadness in the house and became especially clingy, wanting to be held constantly. After the funeral, which was attended by what seemed like half the territory, Cole and Evelyn sat on their porch and talked late into the night. "He left the ranch to us," Evelyn said quietly. "His lawyer brought me the will this morning. Everything he had, all of this land, it is ours now. Jamie will inherit it someday, the way I inherited it from my father." Cole was quiet for a long moment. "Your father was a good man. He gave me a chance when I was just a drifter with nothing to offer but my labor. He treated me like a son." "He loved you, Edgersty," Evelyn said. "He told me once that he could not have asked for a better man for me or a better father for his grandchildren. He died knowing we would take care of everything he built, and that gave him peace." They sat in silence for a while, holding hands and watching the stars come out over the desert. Life would go on, the ranch would continue, and they would honor James's memory by building on the foundation he had laid. The years that followed were good ones. Jamie grew into a responsible, thoughtful boy who loved the ranch and everything about it. Cole taught him to ride, to rope, to fix things with his hands. Sarah was more artistic, preferring to draw pictures of the animals and the landscape rather than work with them directly, but she too loved her home and her family fiercely. In 1890, Evelyn gave birth to their third child, another boy they named Thomas, after no one in particular, but simply because they both liked the name. Thomas was a wild, energetic child who kept them all on their toes, constantly getting into mischief and exploring everything he could reach. Cole joked that Thomas had gotten all of their children's combined adventurous spirit, and they would never have a moment's peace again. But there was peace, deep and abiding, in the life they had built. The ranch was prosperous, their children were healthy and happy, and Cole and Evelyn's love for each other had only deepened with time. They still made time for each other, stealing moments alone when they could, keeping the romance alive even amidst the chaos of raising 3 children and running a large cattle operation. One evening in the summer of 1892, they were sitting on their porch after putting the children to bed, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and rose. Cole reached over and took Evelyn's hand, threading his fingers through hers in the familiar gesture that still made her heart skip a beat after more than a decade together. "Do you ever think about that day?" he asked softly. "The day the wagon wheel broke?" Evelyn smiled, squeezing his hand. "I think about it all the time. How different my life would be if that wheel had held, if you had been riding a different direction, if 1,000 little things had been different. But they were not, and you were there, and everything changed." "I knew," Cole said. "The moment I saw you standing there in the dust, trying to look brave even though you had to be worried, I knew there was something special about you. I told myself I was just fixing your wheel and making sure you got home safe, but the truth is I was already hoping for a reason to stay." "And I gave you one," Evelyn said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "My father gave you one. This land gave you one. But mostly I think we gave each other a reason. We were both looking for home without really knowing it, and we found it in each other." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and the first stars appeared. Inside the house, they could hear Jamie reading a story to his younger siblings, his voice carrying through the open window. It was a sound of home, of family, of everything they had built together from that chance meeting on a dusty road. In 1895, when Jamie turned 15, he began taking on more responsibility around the ranch. He was tall and strong, with his father's work ethic and his mother's sharp mind for business. Cole was immensely proud of his son, though he made sure Jamie understood that he did not have to follow in their footsteps if he wanted something different. But Jamie loved the ranch as much as his parents did, and he could not imagine any other life. Sarah, at 11, had decided she wanted to be a teacher. She spent her free time reading every book she could get her hands on, and she had started teaching Thomas his letters and numbers with a patience that amazed her parents. Evelyn and Cole encouraged her dreams, even as they knew it might mean she would have to leave the ranch someday to pursue her education. They wanted their children to be happy, whatever that meant for each of them. Thomas, at 5, was still a whirlwind of energy and curiosity. He followed his father everywhere, asking endless questions about how things worked and why. Cole answered every question with patience, recognizing in his youngest son the same need to understand the world that had driven him to learn so many skills as a young man. As the century drew to a close, the Arizona Territory was changing. Railroads had come through, bringing more people and more civilization. Towns that had been rough frontier settlements were becoming proper cities with schools and churches and law. The wild, dangerous days of the early territory were fading into memory, replaced by something more settled and stable. The Hartford-Brennan ranch adapted to these changes, growing and evolving. They were among the first in the area to use modern ranching techniques, always looking for ways to improve without losing the core values that had guided them from the beginning: hard work, honesty, and respect for the land and the people who worked it. In 1900, as the new century began, Cole and Evelyn stood on their porch and looked out over the land they had built together. They were both in their early 40s now, their hair showing touches of gray, their hands calloused from decades of work. But they were healthy and strong, and their love had only deepened with time. 22 years, Evelyn said softly. 22 years since you fixed my wagon wheel and changed my life forever. Cole pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Best decision I ever made. Following you home that day. I told myself it was just to make sure you were safe, but I think some part of me already knew I was following you home for good. I am glad you did, Evelyn murmured. So glad. I cannot imagine any of this without you. You are my partner, my best friend, the love of my life. Everything good in my world exists because you came along when I needed you most. They stood there together as the sun set on the first day of the new century, surrounded by the land they loved and the family they had created. Inside the house, they could hear their children laughing, arguing, living. It was the sound of life continuing, of legacy building, of love multiplying across generations. Jamie would take over the ranch someday, Cole and Evelyn both knew, and he would run it well. He would find his own love, start his own family, and the cycle would continue. Sarah would become a teacher, helping shape young minds in whatever school would have her. Thomas would probably become an engineer or an inventor, given his fascination with how things worked. But whatever paths their children chose, they would carry with them the values their parents had instilled: integrity, compassion, hard work, and love. As the years continued to roll by, Cole and Evelyn settled into the comfortable rhythm of a long, happy marriage. They still worked the ranch together, though they relied more and more on Jamie and the other ranch hands for the hardest physical labor. They took time to travel occasionally, visiting other parts of the territory and even venturing to California once to see the ocean. But they always came home, because home was where they belonged, where their roots ran deep into the red Arizona soil. In 1905, Jamie married a lovely young woman from Prescott named Catherine, and they held the wedding at the ranch, just as Cole and Evelyn had done so many years before. Watching her son exchange vows, Evelyn cried happy tears, remembering her own wedding day and feeling the circle of life continuing. Cole stood beside her, his arm around her waist, and whispered in her ear that he loved her more today than he had even on their wedding day. Sarah left for Teachers College in 1902, and though they missed her terribly, they were so proud of her determination to follow her dreams. She wrote long letters home describing her studies and the friends she was making, and she came home every summer, filling the house with her laughter and stories. In 1906, she got her first teaching position in Flagstaff, and the whole family traveled north to help her settle into her new life. Thomas, true to form, announced at 16 that he wanted to study engineering. With his parents' blessing and financial support, he enrolled in a technical school in California, determined to learn everything he could about the new machines that were changing the world. He talked endlessly about automobiles and airplanes and all manner of contraptions that Cole barely understood, but he supported his son's passion wholeheartedly. By 1910, Cole and Evelyn were grandparents twice over, with Jamie and Catherine producing two beautiful children, a boy and a girl. Watching Cole with his grandchildren, Evelyn was reminded of her own father and how he had loved Jamie. The cycle of life and love continued, each generation building on what came before. They were in their 50s now, still active but slowing down a bit. Cole's hands ached sometimes from decades of hard work, and Evelyn found herself needing reading glasses for the ledgers she still maintained. But they were healthy and happy, surrounded by family and the fruits of their lifetime of labor. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching yet another Arizona sunset, Evelyn turned to Cole with a soft smile. "Do you have any regret?" she asked. "Anything you wish had been different?" Cole thought for a moment, then shook his head. "Not a single one. Every choice I made, every path I took led me to that road where you were stranded with a broken wagon wheel. And everything after that has been better than anything I could have imagined. What about you?" "No regrets," Evelyn said firmly. "Sometimes I think about what my life might have been if you had not come along that day. I probably would have married someone else eventually, someone safe and boring who my father approved of. I would have had a fine life, maybe even a happy one. But it would have been nothing like this. You gave me adventure and partnership and a love that made everything brighter. You saw me for who I really was and loved me anyway, even the parts that were not ladylike or proper." Cole laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "Especially those parts. I never wanted a delicate flower, Evelyn. I wanted a partner who could stand beside me through anything. And that is exactly what I got." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching the sky turn from orange to purple to deep blue. The ranch stretched out around them, prosperous and peaceful, a testament to everything they had built together. In the distance, they could see Jamie checking on the horses in the corral, preparing to settle them for the night. Lights glowed in the windows of the main house where Catherine was putting their grandchildren to bed. "We did good," Cole said softly. "Built something that will last long after we are gone. Raised children who know how to work hard and love well. Made a difference in this community. I would say that is a life well lived." "We did it together," Evelyn reminded him. "Every bit of it together. That is what made it special." As the stars began to appear overhead, Cole stood and helped Evelyn to her feet. They walked slowly back to their little house, the one Cole had built for her all those years ago. It had been expanded over the years, with rooms added for the children and later converted for other uses, but the core of it remained the same. It was their sanctuary, their haven, the physical representation of the life they had chosen to build together. That night, lying in bed with Cole's arms around her, Evelyn thought about the miracle of their meeting, the incredible good fortune that had brought them together. A broken wagon wheel, a helpful cowboy, and everything had changed. It seemed like such a small thing, such a random occurrence, but it had shaped the entire rest of their lives. She thought about all the people out there in the world who might be waiting for their own broken wagon wheel moment, for that chance encounter that would change everything. She hoped they would recognize it when it came, hoped they would have the courage to follow where it led. The years continued to pass, bringing changes both large and small. Arizona became a state in 1912, and the Hartford-Brennan ranch was there to witness the celebration. Cole and Evelyn were now pillars of their community, respected and admired for their integrity and their generosity. They had helped countless neighbors over the years, lending money when times were hard, sharing resources, mediating disputes. Their legacy was not just the land and cattle, but the web of relationships and goodwill they had fostered. In 1918, the world was convulsed by a terrible war, and though it seemed far away from their Arizona home, it touched them nevertheless. Thomas, now a successful engineer in California, volunteered to serve, using his skills to help design better vehicles and equipment for the Army. The year he was gone was one of the hardest of Cole and Evelyn's lives, filled with constant worry and fervent prayers for his safety. When he finally returned home in 1919, whole and healthy, the celebration at the ranch lasted for days. Jamie's children grew up and started families of their own, and Cole and Evelyn found themselves surrounded by great-grandchildren. Sarah married a fellow teacher and moved to Phoenix, where she became the principal of a school and touched hundreds of lives through her dedication to education. All three of their children had found their paths and built good lives, and that was perhaps the greatest achievement of all. In 1925, Cole and Evelyn celebrated their 46th wedding anniversary. They were in their late 60s now, definitely feeling their age, but still active and engaged with life. The ranch was mostly run by Jamie and his sons, but Cole still helped where he could, unable to fully retire from the work he loved. That anniversary evening, they returned to the spot where Cole had fixed Evelyn's wagon wheel so many decades before. They had made it a tradition over the years, visiting this place on special occasions to remember where it all began. The road was different now, wider and better maintained, but the desert around it was essentially unchanged. 46 years, Cole said, shaking his head in wonder. Where did the time go? Into building a life, Evelyn replied, taking his hand. Into raising children and working the land and loving each other. Time well spent, I would say. Cole pulled her close, and they stood there together as the sun set over the desert, two people who had found each other by chance and built a love that would last forever. They had faced droughts and difficulties, celebrated births and mourned deaths, worked and laughed and cried together, and through it all, their love had been the constant, the foundation on which everything else was built. I would do it all again, Cole murmured, every single moment, exactly the same way, just to end up right here with you. Me too, Evelyn whispered. Every broken wagon wheel, every moment of joy and sorrow, all of it. Because it led to this, to us, to the family we made and the life we shared. They stood there until the stars came out, two elderly lovers holding each other close, grateful for the chance meeting that had changed everything. Around them the desert breathed and whispered, keeping its secrets, holding its beauty close. And somewhere out there, perhaps, another wagon wheel was breaking, another helpful soul was stopping to lend a hand, and another great love story was just beginning. As they walked slowly back to their truck, modern convenience replacing the horses and wagon of their youth, Cole paused and looked back one more time. "Thank you," he said softly, though whether he was thanking God or fate or the universe itself, even he could not say. "For what?" Evelyn asked. "For being stranded that day, for letting me fix your wheel, for letting me follow you home, for saying yes to all of it." Evelyn smiled, the same smile that had captivated him all those years ago. "Thank you for stopping, for helping, for seeing me, for loving me all these years." They drove home together through the gathering darkness, toward the ranch that glowed with lights and life and the laughter of their descendants. It was a fitting end to their anniversary celebration, returning to the place they had built together, the legacy they would leave behind. The final years of their lives were peaceful and filled with love. They were surrounded by family, respected by their community, and secure in the knowledge that they had lived well and loved deeply. When Cole passed away in his sleep in 1932 at the age of 74, Evelyn held his hand and told him one last time how much she loved him, how grateful she was for every moment they had shared. She followed him just a year later, unable to bear the separation for long. Her children and grandchildren gathered around her bed, and with her last breath she whispered Cole's name. They buried her beside him on a hill overlooking the ranch, where they could watch over the land they had loved together. Their story became a legend in the family, passed down through generations. The great-great-grandchildren who eventually inherited the ranch knew about the broken wagon wheel, about the cowboy who had stopped to help, about the love that had followed. It was a reminder that sometimes the most important moments in life come unexpectedly, that kindness and courage can change everything, and that true love, when found and nurtured, lasts not just a lifetime, but forever. The Hartford-Brennan ranch continued to prosper, generation after generation, working the land and honoring the legacy of Cole and Evelyn. And on certain evenings, when the light was just right and the desert breeze whispered through the brush, some family members swore they could feel the presence of that original couple, still watching over the home they had built together, still loving each other across the boundary between life and death. It was a love story for the ages, born from a broken wagon wheel and a kind heart, nurtured through hard work and dedication, and immortalized in the land and the family that carried on their name. And if you listened carefully on those quiet desert evenings, you might hear the echo of laughter, the ghost of a conversation between two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful that would last forever.